LinkedIn presents.
When we bond with someone, an us is created, a dynamic system of orbiting bodies. That system is ripped apart when our loved one dies, and many people feel physical symptoms as a result. If we have the courage to sit and listen to our body as we would listen to a sorrowful and wordless child, we may come to learn how our body responds to unbearable loss and how our distinctive way of being in the world initiates our body's stress response. Perhaps grieving enables us to understand and honor what the death of our one and only really means.
Happy Wednesday, friends. I'm Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily. Quick masterclasses from the best new books written and read by the authors themselves. Don't forget to hit follow in your podcast player and sign up for our free newsletter using the link in the episode notes. Now, if you've ever lost a loved one, and if you haven't, I'm sorry to say you almost certainly will at some point, you know that grief isn't just something you feel in your head. It's something you carry in your body. It's physical. Your heart races, your appetite disappears, your limbs feel heavy. Scientists now know that bereavement can weaken the immune system, disrupt sleep, and even increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. In extreme cases, people really can die of a broken heart. Mary Frances O'Connor, a neuroscientist and clinical psychologist, has spent 25 years studying how grief affects our physical health. In her new book, The Grieving Body, How the Stress of Loss Can Be an Opportunity for Healing, Mary Frances explores the deep connection between loss and our physiology and how understanding this link can help us heal. She'll join us to share the key insights from the book right after this quick break.
Hi, I'm Mary Frances O'Connor, neuroscientist and clinical psychologist, and author of the new book, The Grieving Body, How the Stress of Loss Can Be an Opportunity for Healing. Over the past 25 years of conducting research on how our cardiovascular and immune systems respond during bereavement, plus coming to terms with my own grief experiences after my mother died in my 20s and my subsequent loss of health due to multiple sclerosis, I've come to understand these 5 big ideas. The first big idea is grief is not a disease, but grief is a bodily response as well as an emotional one. Grief is the natural, normal response to the death of our loved one. But grief happens in the body as well as the mind. By analogy, pregnancy is also not a disease, but we all recognize it as a period of increased medical risk and encourage screening for hypertension and gestational diabetes. During bereavement, blood pressure and heart rate increase on average, which can put stress on our heart. Grief emerges as waves of intense sadness and yearning, but it also upsets the regulation of our physiological systems, which leads to difficulty with sleep and appetite. We really can die of a broken heart. Studies of over 1 million people have shown that bereaved people do have higher rates of heart attack and stroke. Widowers are nearly twice as likely to die in the first 3 months following the death of their spouse as those who are married for that same period. We see examples of this epidemiological data in highly publicized stories of heartbreak, like the recent deaths of both parents of comedian Conan O'Brien, who died 3 days apart in December 2024. Bereavement is the time to get a regular medical checkup. Along with blood pressure, inflammation and cortisol, our stress hormone, increase somewhat as well. Most of us return to our baseline levels in the first 6 months to a year after our loved one dies. But during this stressful time, we're at increased risk for medical problems. Our regular doctor or nurse practitioner visit can detect hypertension. Our regular dental cleaning can reveal gum disease. Getting our flu vaccine is even more important for our struggling immune system. When we have been caring for a terminally ill loved one, often our focus has been entirely on their health, appointments, and tests, and not on our own. During bereavement, the challenge is that we must remember to care for our grieving body at a time when it may be difficult to do much at all. This time of mourning may be longer and harder than we could have ever anticipated. Protest and despair are common responses to loss. In animals and humans, in all creatures that create attachment bonds, protest and despair are two common responses to loss that occur over and over again. Protest is the panicky, "Oh no, they're gone?" And despair has all the heaviness of, "Oh no, they're gone." You can feel how physical each of those responses are and completely different from each other, along with the thoughts that accompany them. Protest comes with anger and blame, irrationally motivating us to find them, to wail loudly so they can find us. Despair comes with depressed mood and lack of motivation to see anyone or do anything, to withdraw because of the equally irrational belief that nothing will ever change. And yet, despair is giving up that resolves the agitation of protest, because protest is extremely costly for our body's energy budget. Despair is not the end of the story, however, because despair leaves out hope. The hope that we could have one day both grief over our loss and a meaningful life built around our grief. We can develop new ways to cope with these natural responses of protest and despair. Often bereavement takes a toll on our health, not just because of our initial stress response, but rather because our coping strategies are not so good for us, like using substances or overworking to shut off our mind. We can develop habits that act as a support to our grieving, like a cast supporting a healing broken bone. Protest and despair are not just responses to the death of a loved one, however, but to many kinds of loss. The loss of health, the loss of a job, the loss of a certain future are also met with the protest and despair over these irreparable changes. In my own life, diagnosis with multiple sclerosis led to cycles of protest and despair. Overworking to prove I could still do anything I set my mind to, and despair over the ultimately fragile nature of our human bodies. In The Grieving Body, I explain how I went from pinballing through my life to developing strategies of responsiveness instead of reactivity, and loving kindness for myself and others. Honoring our unique relationship with our loved one can mean honoring what their absence means in our body. When we bond with someone, an us is created, a dynamic system of orbiting bodies. That system is ripped apart when our loved one dies, and many people feel physical symptoms as a result. If we have the courage to sit and listen to our body as we would listen to a sorrowful and wordless child, we may come to learn how our body responds to unbearable loss, and how our distinctive way of being in the world initiates our body's stress response. Perhaps grieving enables us to understand and honor what the death of our one and only really means. For some, the surprising embodied experience of feeling unsteady on our feet or feeling pain in our heart. Perhaps only then can we truly learn to comfort ourselves and ask for kindness from others, strengthening our ties with living loved ones and connecting with others who have loved and grieved.
Thank you, Mary Frances. Okay, that's our show for the day, everyone. If you got something out of it, please leave a rating or review in your podcast player so others can find it too. And go to nextbigideaclub.com to find out about our hardback subscription club. That's where we send you the best new nonfiction books as selected by our curators, Malcolm Gladwell, Adam Grant, Susan Cain, and Daniel Pink. You can check it out at nextbigideaclub.com. I'm Michael Kovnat. Hope to see you tomorrow.